Hello everyone, in this second video tutorial regarding our series on TINKERCAD, we will explore the basic shapes, their peculiarities, and how to make the most out of them. As always, to start a project, simply click on Create a 3D project. Once the page is loaded, we'll find ourselves into the interface. Let's change the name to Video 2, in this case, and begin working. Firstly, to place a basic shape on the plane, we need to scroll through the drop-down menu on the right and drag the desired shape onto the plane. For each shape, a dialog interface will appear, allowing us to choose between solid or hollow object, enabling addition or subtraction relative to another object. Let's explore various shapes by clicking on the newly placed shape. Apart from the two options in the dialog interface, solid and hollow, we also find handles enabling detailed object modification. This applies to most basic shapes, but not all. Now let's see how and which shapes can be modified using these handles. These are all the basic shapes that can be modified through the dialog interface, not simply to the handles that appear once the object is clicked. Typically, a basic shape can be modified by selecting one of these points on the object and entering the desired value. For instance, modifying the height of the cube. However, for the shapes presented here, modification can be done precisely through this dialog interface. For the cube, we can decide to change the radius, which modifies the roundness of the corners that the program applies to the sides of the base polygon of the rectangle, then steps that increase or decrease the number of polygons generating the object, next the length as the width, that can change the height and the length of our cube. Moving on to the cylinder, we can increase or decrease the number of polygons composing our shape from a minimum of 12 to a maximum of 64. The bevel does exactly the same thing as the radius for the cube, that means it increases or decreases the rounding of the base polygon, and lastly, the segments, which increase or decrease the definition of the circle as the base of the polygon. Continuing, we have the sphere, of which we can only modify the steps, which modify how many polygons the shape is composed of. Then we have the scribble tool, allowing us to create organic shapes directly on the program plane, where we can adjust the height. Next, we find the cone. Here we can modify its upper radius, the base radius to widen the base, and the height, and again, the number of polygons composing the shape. Next is the pyramid, where we can only modify the number of polygons at the base. Moving forward, next function allows us to modify both the text comment, in this case from T to a C, and as well the font used, the height, and the rounding applied by the program to the base polygon. Advancing, we find a regular polygon, where we can increase or decrease the sides, for example, from an hexagon to an octagon, the bevel, the rounding of the base of the polygon, and the segment composing the shape of the polygon. Next, we have the paraboloid, where we can only modify the polygons. Then the torus, where we can adjust to the other radius, the amplitude, and the radius composing the tube. After that, we have the star, where we can increase the points, the radius of the amplitude, the inner radius to obtain thinner or wider rays. Finally, the ring, where we can modify the sides to increase or decrease the object definition, and especially modify the section through this menu. Like this. Having seen this, let's see how to make interact two basic shapes with each other. Let's take two shapes at randoms, place one on top of the other, and see how, by using the solid or hollow function, we can create perforated or otherwise piece shape. In this case, let's make this cylinder hollow. Select both the shape and click Group. As we can see, the program will create a negative of the cylinder on the cube. However, this doesn't prevent the object from being modified like a simple shape. By changing these numbers through the handles, we can modify the height or the length of the shape. To revert the object back to its original state, simply click on Separate, and we will see the cylinder reappear and the cube unaltered. For this basic video tutorial, it's all. For more videos like this, follow JBD Tube.